recording. Now it's recording. Good morning. So we are back in Tanya, starting a new chapter. Always excited to start a new chapter, chapter 30. Interesting chapter. What's interesting, what's unique about this chapter is that that the Alter Rebbe, when he wrote the Tanya, did not have this chapter in the first edition. He inserted this chapter in the second round, when he was reprinting or redoing the manuscript of the Tanya. And it kind of goes a little bit out of the theme, but if the Alter Rebbe felt after, if you think about it, he read over the Tanya and he felt that was important to insert this, then obviously there's a very strong importance to this chapter. It kind of makes this chapter more, put some more weight on this chapter than the others. And this chapter really focuses how to remain humble, especially not only in front of Hashem, which is in a sense to be humble in Hashem's presence. If you study a bit Tanya, kind of goes without saying. What is a lot more difficult is to be humble in front of other people. It's easier to be humble in front of Hashem than being humble in front of other people. It's a famous joke of the rabbi who walks into the synagogue one day and he has this tremendous inspiration and he runs to the ark and opens the ark and lays down flat and he says, Hashem, Hashem, in your presence, I am nothing. And then the president of the shul was there, and he also runs to the front and says, Hashem, in the presence of Hashem, I am nothing. So the rabbi and the president laying flat, humbled in the presence of Hashem. When all of a sudden the janitor of the synagogue hears them both with this inspiration, he runs to the front and he also lays down and he says, God, God, in the front of you, I am nothing. The rabbi turns to the president and says, look who thinks that he is nothing. So it is a, they say every joke has a kernel of truth. We all can definitely witness and have no question that people will always say, yeah, this guy, I know a guy who's not humble, right? I know a guy who acts like that. But Tanya is a mirror of yourself. When, especially when we point out to others, in general, we point out to others, as we're going to see in this chapter really will focus how to remain humble, how to care, which will lead to chapter 31 and 32. How do you truly love another human being, which is probably the hardest mitzvah. We're kind of transitioning into taking everything we learned, and now we're really going to actually learning how to live with those ideas. I'll start with a story of the one of the great rabbis who lived in the Alter Rebbe's times. His name was Reb Shmelke. Shmelke once came to a town. He was a great rabbi, a great Rebbe. Came to a town. The whole town was excited to welcome the Rebbe. They prepared a beautiful reception in the synagogue. And when he came to the synagogue, before he walked in, he asked if he can go to a side room for a few minutes to be with himself. He said, sure. He went to the side room, and one of the Hasidim wanted to understand, what is he doing? Why does he need to go into the side room? So he listened in. He kind of peeked. He had his ear by the door, and he hears Reb Shmelke talking to himself. And strangely enough, he hears Reb Shmelke saying, Shalom Aleichem Rebbe Shmelke. Welcome the great Rabbi Shmelke, the great Rebbe of all of Europe, who has thousands of Hasidim, who is a God-fearing person. He's giving the introduction to himself. He's repeating it before he even gets the introduction to the great synagogue. And the Chassid asked Rebbe, what are you doing? Why are you talking to yourself? And he says, I'm about to walk into the shul, and they're going to give me all these accolades, and they're going to introduce me with all these special titles. I'm afraid that it's going to inflate my ego. So first thing, I want to repeat it for myself. And every time I say the great Rebbe, I say to myself, what a bunch of nonsense. what like I am nothing even close to what they're saying. I want to make sure that I don't walk in and I get distracted, and all of a sudden, yeah, everybody likes to be recognized. People like to have their name called with, especially with beautiful um, introductions and beautiful titles. I remember there was a chassid in 770. He was a very funny, real chassid in his 90s. It was funny. A real chassid means that person that is, like he's permeated with Hashem, with uh, with fear of Hashem. He lives his life every moment with Hashem, but with such a humble spirit. And he would always laugh at everything. Like I mean, don't make me into something really. So I think they once introduced him to speak at one of the Farbrengens in 770. They said, Reb Meir, he is a big chassid. He's a big Talmud Chacham, a big scholar. He is, he knows this, he knows that. And then he got up and he says, you forgot to say I'm also a very good chazan. And he was a horrible chazan. He was basically making fun of everybody. Anyways, so that is really what the Alter Rebbe is starting here, chapter 30. And the question is how not to judge others. We're on page 340. Section 1, why others should make you feel humble. This chapter, which I mentioned, which did not appear in the original manuscript version of the Tanya, was added by the author to the first print edition, offers an important lesson on remaining humble and not judging others. Also take the following to heart. Alter Rebbe writes now, try to fulfill the teaching of our sages of blessed memory. I'll say the Hebrew, be humble in spirit before everyone. Which implies that you shouldn't just act humbly, but you should literally and generally feel humble before everyone, even before the most religiously irreverent person, Jew or non-Jew. And the key to doing this is by following another teaching of our sages of blessed memory. Do not judge another person until you have been in his circumstances. Mishnah Avos 2:4, because it is his circumstances that caused him to sin. Example, it could be that his work requires him to be around the marketplace all day, exposed to its negative influences and temptations. At any moment when he's not doing business, he inevitably becomes one of those who sit at street corners, surrounded by gossip, and his eyes see every form of temptation. And when the eye sees, the heart craves, quotes from Rashi, and this passion and the passions of his impulse to evil are ignited like an oven heated by a baker, as written in Hosea. It blazes like a flaming fire. This is quite different from a person who spends little time around the marketplace and most of the day sitting at home. And it's different too from a person who's around the marketplace all day, but as can be the case, is not so easily aroused by his nature to seek pleasure, since the impulse to evil is not the same in all people. Some people have a particularly strong impulse to evil, while others do not, as explained elsewhere. So the Tanya is quickly to clarify that this argument of judging people favorably due to their circumstances does not excuse sinful behavior. It just helps you to understand it and soften your judgment of it. Now, in truth, even a person who is very easily aroused to seek pleasure, and his work does require him to sit at the street corner all day, exposed to all sorts of temptation, negative influences, has no justification for his sins. At the moment he sins, he's classified as a complete Russia, since there is no interpretation of God before his eyes. While some situations may be more challenging than others, ultimately we all have free choice of our actions and should never excuse our own sins. For he should have restrained himself in taking control of his heart's pleasure, seeking urges due to the trepidation of God, who watches over all his actions, as has been explained above in chapter 12, since inherently and naturally in every person, the brain rules over the heart. Okay, beautifully written, beautifully said. So let's recap. The Mishnah says, do not judge a person until you have reached his place. What does that mean? Don't judge a person. Don't judge a person until you have reached his place. Understand his or her circumstances. Number one. Number two, or before this, he said that a person has to always be humble in front of everybody else. Every human being adds over here, not just a Jew, even a non-Jew. Every person has to be humble in front of every human being, right? Meaning, how can you be humble in front of everybody? And he says the word mamash. Very interesting Hebrew word, the word mamash. Mamash is used as in the translation. Mamash means literally. Literally. The little sense of the word mamash. When the Tanya uses the word mamash, he emphasizes that what I'm writing is not just a nice concept, but it actually is this way in reality. Meaning you got to live and understand it by the very meaning what I'm writing, what I'm sharing, the belief is. We had the word mamash when it came to the soul, the godly soul in chapter 2. When he started the second soul of every Jew, Vanefesh Hashem is based on the second soul of every Jew. He is in part of Hashem, right? Is in part of Hashem. Mamash. The word mamash meaning actually. It's not just a nice concept. It's actually. It's really a piece of Hashem. So when the Torah says you have to be humble in front of every person, it's not just nice to think, yeah, I got to be humble, right? Okay, at least I'm going to pretend to be humble in front of the other person. Rather, but the Alter Rebbe says that's not enough. It means actually to be humble. And I want to emphasize it because we can convince ourselves that we are humble in front of somebody else, but deep down in our psyche, we are not humble. We feel inferior. We feel that we are better than the other person. Especially, as he mentions this, even somebody who is less religious, especially within religious people, is this problem where they look down at somebody who's not as religious. Yeah, I love every Jew, right? I love Israel. But if he doesn't follow Shabbos, he doesn't keep Shabbos, we are better than them. Alter Rebbe demands it, and he says, how can I really be humble in a real way? For that, I need what I would need number two, what the Mishnah says, do not judge another person until you have come to their place, to their situation. You got to understand, why is the person like that? Why is he acting this way? He is a result of his circumstances. And right away he throws in, but don't use the circumstance as an excuse for sin. Too many times people say, look, I have to do this and this because I am in this situation. And that's why I sin. God will understand. So it's hard, because why? Because in one side, Torah demands that I should not be judgmental over somebody else, no matter what he does, no matter how much he sins. I still have to be humble. See, I think in a sense, loving a person is easier than being humble in front of somebody else. What do you think? Loving a person is from a distance to a stranger it's not hard. Why? Because it doesn't require anything from you. In a sense, it doesn't require to examine yourself. When Torah says be humble in front of every person, now it's more about yourself than about the other. So And now behevishvel ruach, as he quotes here, to be humble in front of somebody else. How do I get there? By not judging them. Okay, so by not judging them. And right away, on the same point, he says that not a person should not interpret that for themselves, because take it the other way around, right? Okay, the other way around. If I should not judge somebody else because I don't know their circumstances, which means that the other person should also look at me the same way, right? That they should not judge me because of my circumstances. Okay, if so, my circumstances make me sin, and they shouldn't judge me. So the Alter Rebbe says, no. There's two separate things here. There's one way, the way I look at somebody else, and there's the other way, how I must conduct myself. I cannot blame my circumstances for my behavior.
Oh, you're such a good boy.
Mitzvah, it's good to see you.
Good boy.
Mute us.
I did.
You too.
So now Zoom, I didn't realize Zoom, when you look, I have all the participants, and the moment there's noise by the name of the person, there's like these waves go up. So you could just click mute. Wish I had this in shul.
You can't mute there. You wish you could have.
So again, but Mitzvah, it's great to see you back. Great to have you back in class. So now, that's really I want to get that point through. We're gonna take this one more beautiful thing. So the last part that I meant to say. 1 second. Is that why can you not blame the circumstance for your sin? He says, because, as we learned in Tanya, you have freedom of choice. Moyach shalit al halev. Your mind controls the heart. You can't blame your heart for the temptation that it got engaged in some type of environment that you find yourself, because ultimately you have a mind, and the mind's job is to control the heart. So you are responsible for your actions. Okay. By the way, the Rebbe writes somewhere that when it says, the Mishnah says, do not judge somebody until you have come to until you're in their shoes, so to speak, right? But why does the Mishnah write in a negative way? Do not judge somebody until you're, meaning, it should have said, judge every person favorably. Do not judge somebody until they come to their place. Two ways of saying it. I can say, judge every person, every human being favorably. Or I can say, don't judge anybody until you have come into their place. One of the answer is that you can never come into somebody's place. You will never reach somebody, no matter what, you will never reach. Impossible. So don't even attempt to judge the person, because sometimes it's the other way also, the other way around. Even if it's a good intention, is 1 second. Yeah, so they should they should also again, I'm sorry, I got distracted. Even if somebody, if we say, I judge the person favorably because XYZ, what we're doing is we can create. No, forget about it. Forget. I lost my thought. I'm just gonna come back. It's gonna come back. Sorry. Okay. Time for a good story. Then we're gonna move further. Story with there was a great rabbi by the name of Menachem Mendel Morgenstern. He was the Kotzker Rebbe, and in his town, in the shul, there was a yasam. A yasam is a orphan, young orphan, and he had a lot of health issues. In addition to being a yasam, he had some. He was lame, and he would steal from the pushka at the synagogue. Right? It was a tzedakah box, and people put coins, and he would steal money from there. And they caught him, so they would scream at him. The people would scream at him. So he would say, "Why are you screaming at him? Why are you screaming at him? Don't judge a person until you have come to their place." So they said, but there's also another mitzvah that says that if you see somebody doing something wrong, you should call them out. You should rebuke them. Torah says you should rebuke another person when you see they do something wrong. If we're not going to call them out, he's going to continue doing it, he's going to continue stealing. He said, the problem is not that you're rebuking him. The problem is the way you're rebuking him. What does it say in the Torah? It says first you should love your fellow like yourself, and then it says you should rebuke a fellow being. How do you rebuke a fellow being? When first there is true love for another person. When you tell a person that they are wrong, and you say that because some people enjoy rebuking other people. Some people make that a hobby. There's always one or two people in every synagogue that love screaming at everybody else. You know that cell phone that goes off in shul? Somebody forgot to shut the cell phone, and then the guy in the back, his job is, shut that phone already. How many times? Gotta yell. Why are you yelling? They actually enjoy to be the police. You have to be in your place. Who gives you the right to rebuke? The Rebbe said, this child. Have you ever been an orphan? Have you been an orphan at that age? And even if you are, have you been lame and an orphan at the same time? Who gives you the right to yell and scream at this kid? Love your fellow. Be humble. Don't judge till you their place. And then the last mitzvah that you can incorporate, then you can incorporate properly rebuking. You know how you rebuke somebody? Not because you look that they did something wrong, because you love that person so much that it bothers you that they did something wrong. It bothers you because you love them. And when you can express that to somebody, then those words will actually be listened by the person, because he senses that words come from a humble, authentic place of love, not a place of rebuke. Okay, good stuff here. Let's continue in Tanya, section 2, page 342. Are you fighting your impulse to evil? Now, to beat the impulse to evil, which blazes like a flaming fire through its reputation of God, really is an enormous and difficult struggle. It's like a real test of faith. The real question is, how much is a person actively engaged in the struggle? External levels of observance tell us little or nothing about what is going on inside another person. Right? So how do we? This is a big fight. How do I actually? How much can I do that? And this is the time to just give us insight in how to be humble in spirit before everyone. Since you don't know a person's struggle, what you do know for sure is that you could be making more effort. Therefore, every person must take into account his current standing and level in the worship of Hashem, weigh and evaluate for himself if he's really worshiping God at the same level as those faced with the enormous struggle and test mentioned above, people who are exposed to unimaginable temptation. So the Alter Rebbe is saying, don't stop by just not judging them and say, okay, I don't get it. I can't judge them because I'm not in their place. But also reflect on yourself. How are you doing with your impulsive evil? In other words, you that don't have those temptations, you are not working in the marketplace as he gives the example. How are you doing with your evil? How's your job working? How is it working with myself? If I want to measure up his temptation, and with his temptation he gives in, I that don't have the temptation, am I winning the war with my evil inclination? This is both in positive areas of do good, such as struggling to worship through devotional prayer, pouring out your soul before God, literally with all your energy, as Sifri teaches us in the verse. You shall love God with all your soul until the last drop of life is wrung out of you, as well as fighting vigorously against your body and its animal soul, which dampen your devotion to crush and grind their opposition to dust every day as preparation before the morning and evening prayers. The afternoon prayer, which comes in the middle of the day, does not afford much time for preparation. In addition to this preparation before prayer, also during prayer, you ought to exert yourself, toiling with your body to silence its urges and toiling with your soul to become excited about spiritual things, as we'll explain later. At length in chapter 42. It is the extent of this struggle that determines whether or not you're actively fighting your impulse to evil. A very important concept. And this is repeated over and over. Many times when we listen to Tanya or we study Tanya, it talks about sin, right? It talks about sin, evil inclination. Now, many times we think, okay, I don't really have that much sin. I'm a good person. I wake up in the morning, I pray, I do the right thing. Engage in sinful behavior. Keeps talking about sinful. What is patience? I'm pretty much. I have my mind. This controls my heart. I'm good. I'm in good shape, rather. It's So what the Alter Rebbe keeps saying is that serving Hashem is not only about not sinning. That's a given. And of course, we got to work on that. Don't take that for granted. Don't take that for granted, because as you know, you can be as we learned, you can be in the most spiritual state that you thought you are, and you can have a downfall instantly. Don't let your guards down. But on the same hand, at the same time, and if not even more, you need to always work to increase your connection, the positive, the advancement of coming closer and being even more engaged in my connection with Hashem. Love Hashem. Loving Hashem. There are so many levels of love Hashem. What I have accomplished today in my love needs to be taken to the next level and further. It's infinitely always more to do in that. Now, too many times, similar people people like to kind of create that image of themselves. I kind of am just fine. I'm not sinning. I am a good Jew. I do this. I do that. Of course, I love Hashem, and I talk to Hashem a lot. I do my mitzvahs. I give my tzedakah. I love Hashem. But it cannot remain status quo. Everything you do, every mitzvah you do, requires for you to toil. If there's no effort in the mitzvah, you're not doing enough. If a mitzvah just becomes a habit or just something that I'm comfortable with, I'm not doing enough. Hence, for that, how do I do that? How do I actually go from one level to the next level. I thought I worked hard. I got it. I pray not only once a day, I pray twice a day. I say the Shema in the morning, I say the Shema in the evening. I say Moda'ani. I'm good. I got the routine. I have it down. I have it in my night table. I have it in my dining room. I go to shul on Shabbat. I have it. What am I missing? So Alter Rebbe says, in our relationship with Hashem, it has to be an effort. It has to be you have to toil. Saying the Shema should be taking effort. If it doesn't take effort, you're not saying Shema enough. Well, it does take effort. Good. I'm not talking about everybody here. All you guys are doing amazing. You keep working and working and working. But so help me out. So nobody wants to work. Everyone wants it easy. Nobody wants to make Shema and effort. If I got it down packed, that's it. How do I initiate that my love for Hashem requires me to go deeper? See, in a relationship between husband and wife, between child and parent, it's always work. There's always work. Why? If there's no work, something is wrong. Right? If there's no work, everything is just on autopilot. There's something, everybody knows there's something going on. It either became very superficial, or not, or if somebody gave up in the relationship, we're just letting it go the way it is. But in a healthy relationship, it's always work. Why? Because there's a pulling, right? There's two forces. Me and Hashem and myself. The relationship is a lot harder to maintain or to grow if in a sense, I can box Hashem in my life. This is who Hashem is in my life. I love Hashem. I fear Hashem. I believe in Hashem. I pray to Him. But it's the same thing 24/7. It's the same thing. There's no challenge. When does it get challenged? When something happens. Right? Something happens. A lot of people are praying to God now these days.
It didn't help.
Huh?
It didn't help.
a lot of people I have not seen that. And the atheists are praying to Hashem. But the point is, that's also not a real relationship. Right. When something happens to you, now you're waking up to beg Hashem for something. Of course, it's real, but it's lacking. It's not a real deep relationship. Yeah, you got the trouble. Now you're turning to the boss. So that's why, my friends, the fundamental idea of Torah. What is the key to make my relationship deeper? Anybody can give me the answer?
Work at it.
Faith, Amona.
What is the vehicle?
I think trust.
Well, you
I
have
say Amona.
to stir it up, so to speak.
Well, I think it's the
I
trust.
don't know where you
Not
are.
the
Well,
trust.
it's not that trust isn't there, but there's always the distractions of life. And one more thing to do and one more distraction. I think that you have to bring your conscious mind into wanting to develop that relationship and stir it up. And
Okay,
that's where I think you
all
find the
all true and right. But I am referring that there is a vehicle that demands us to go deeper in our relationship to Hashem.
there's a vehicle.
It's
That's the faith, maybe.
I will preface the answer with a quote of the Mishnah. The Mishnah in Avos says the world stands on three things: Al Torah, Al al avodah va'al gemilat chasadim. The world stands on three pillars: Torah, avoda, and gemilat chasadim. Torah, you all know what that means, right? Avoda means, in Hebrew, avoda means to toil, service, labor.
Avodah.
Yeah, avoda. Do you know the Labor Party in Israel? It's called avoda. What does that mean? And the third one is gemilot chasadim, which is acts of kindness. So tzedakah, helping people, visiting the sick. What is avodah? What is avodah? Toil, service. What are we talking about? So basically, if somebody reads it superficial, world stands on Torah, working, job, and kindness. That's not what it means. Avodah means tefillah, to pray. To pray. Praying in Hebrew is avodah, is work, is service, is toiling. The main purpose of our daily prayer is to toil and to deepen and to expand our relationship with Hashem. If we don't have that understanding, you are failing to understand and you feel out of place when you pray in Jewish prayers. People have struggled with prayers. Why? Because it's sometimes not very interesting. I thought I'm coming to God and I'm asking God, save Israel, give me health, give me nachas, give me this, give me that, right? Which is also part of prayer, but that's just 1% of all the prayers I say in the morning prayer. Morning prayer, if you take the Siddur morning prayer, which takes about 45 minutes to an hour to read every morning, 99% talks about the greatness of Hashem, right? The majority of it talks about how Hashem is great, how Hashem is in charge, Hashem is so beautiful, Hashem gives us everything, and I'm grateful for everything. Very little is about what I need. Prayer in Hebrew means I need, in English, prayer means a request. I have something I need. In Hebrew, prayer is called tefillah or avodah. It's connection, and that takes work. My connection to Hashem takes work. Why does it take work? I'm good, I'm connected, I love Hashem. You know why? Because if your prayer does not come easy, if your prayer and your love for Hashem is unchallenged, it doesn't come easy, it comes too easy, you're not doing enough. You got to do more. That's why you have to prepare to pray. You mentioned this here, right, in the chapter here. He said that before the morning service and the afternoon service, or the evening service, right, you have to prepare. You have to prepare. He says here, you have to exert yourself, toiling with your body to silence its urges. The preparation to daven. How can I come and deepen my love for Hashem? First, I need to toil and exert all the evil inclination within me to silence them, to keep them in check. So now I can daven. You can't just walk into synagogue and say, Shema Yisrael Hashem, I love you. A minute before, you just gossiped, you just cursed somebody out, your neighbor, and he's in Shugana, etc. Come to Hashem, I love you, Hashem. Walk out of the shul. Again, I hate all these people. I hate those type of people. That's playing games, Alter Rebbe says. So it goes together. Toiling means prepare yourself for prayer, meaning be humble. Moda Ani helps us be humble. Once you have humility, now you understand that I need to do more. I need to do more in my relation to Hashem. So now let's finish up here about the war. On page 344. In the extent of the struggle that determines whether or not you're actively fighting your impulse to evil, it says like this, in any person who has not adopted this approach of fighting this difficult war against the body, would not yet be described as fighting his impulse to evil, which blazes like a flaming fire. He has not caused his impulse to evil to be subdued and broken through a trepidation of God. A person might observe all the mitzvahs meticulously and pray in synagogue 3 times a day, and yet he has not yet even begun to fight his impulse to evil. So the test of this is he struggling greatly? Similarly, with concentration, doing other acts of devotional worship, such as this biblical requirement of grace after meals, as well as all the rabbinical required blessing, both over pleasurable experiences before mitzvahs, and it goes without saying, having authentic intention when performing the mitzvahs, there must be an ongoing struggle with the impulse to evil for more intense devotion and less distraction. Similarly, with commitment to Torah study, you should study much more than you want or desire by nature or by nurture through an intense struggle with your body, because to study a little bit more than your natural inclination requires just a minor battle, which can't be compared in any way to really fighting your impulse to evil, which blazes like a fire. For if you don't champion over your impulse to evil, subduing it and breaking it before God, you're classified as a complete Rasha. So all these thoughts should help you to be humble of spirit before everyone, not to judge another person until you have shared his circumstances. Before you judge, ask yourself, am I really so holy myself? Have I even begun to fight my impulse to evil? So he kind of digressed on the idea of how I view another person, that I have to be humble of them, but humble and don't judge them until I come to their place. That's not where it ends my conversation. Now it turns against me. Challenge yourself. How am I doing with my service of Hashem? If my service of Hashem it just comes as natural and easy, I'm not doing enough. Why? Here comes the last point. I think he says here is that why do I have to struggle? When he says struggle, toil, he calls it like a battle. Why does it have to be a battle? You know why it has to be a battle?
It's the evil inclination.
Yeah, because you're in a war. Exactly. You're in a constant war, and you have to fight your evil inclination. But in order to fight your evil inclination, you have to also show the passion for Hashem. In other words, it's not just enough that I convinced that I just subdued my evil inclination. Your inclination is a lot stronger than you think. So in the same way, the same manner that I need to exert a lot of energy to fight my inclination, I also need to use that energy to increase my devotion and my love for Hashem. Right. So, and I think, okay, but one second. I am good with my inclination. He's in check, right? And it's quiet. My life is not. There's no battle right now. Okay, so if there's no battle for my inclination, my relationship with Hashem is also good. Everything is good. He says no. Be prepared, because your evil inclination will come roaring like a lion, like this blazing fire. And if you are not in the positive, in your love for Hashem, if you're not on fire, you're just like, okay, I'm taking it easy, I'm all good, you'll come and consume you and pull you down so fast, because you'll be caught off guard. So in practical language, to finish up the class, there is something called to have more passion, to have more chayas, we say in Hebrew. When I daven, when I say the Shema, to have deeper concentration. Do I get distracted? How can I be more focused? Am I just saying one line because the second line is too hard? So let me fight, and I want to conquer the second line because I love Hashem. I want to give an extra. So every day, try to increase, and it should be done with enthusiasm, with passion, in my love and the positive direction I go with Hashem, so I can use the same energy in the opposite towards my evil inclination, not allow my inclination to jump on me, because I am pumped up. I'm pumped up with Hashem, and I'm working every day, and I'm gonna work harder and exercise harder. Exercise is a great idea, right? You can't just exercise and after you got to your goal, you stop, right? You stop. Okay, now I got my goal. You stop. Everybody understands that you got to keep exercising. You got to keep moving your body. The moment you stop, although you might feel good for a few days, a few weeks, it's going to come catching up at you. All right. Any questions? I have 2 minutes left. I got to run. Any other important questions?
I
Yes,
feel
and-
that I'm sorry, but I feel that we need this kind of lessons every day.
That's right.
So I'll send you the recording, and every morning wake up and listen to it.
Oh, Rabbi, thank you. That is
Read
a-
it, you can read yourself too every
Yeah.
day.
I'm trying, but Rabbi explained so nicely with such a patience.
But
with
it's
such a-
easy.
It's true.
Easy. You have to make an effort and do it yourself. That's a very hard work.
Well, it's true, but I always have battles here and off here, and I always find something that I have a problem with.
I'll finish with a letter the Rebbe wrote. Somebody asked the Rebbe, they want to find out what is their mission in life. So in general, when we talk about mission in life, the Rebbe writes that there's a global mission, there's a universal mission to make this world a better place for Hashem, right? What we call tikkun olam. Tikkun olam means that we need to bring Hashem to this world. Hashem feels comfortable being in this world.
Change this world.
That's the universal mission why Hashem created the universe. But then then the belief is that every human being has its unique mission. Otherwise, Hashem wouldn't create you and me. And nobody should say that somebody else will do the mission. I'll sit back. Each of us is a unique piece of the puzzle. So the person was asking to the Rebbe, what is my unique mission? The Rebbe gave 2 indications. The Rebbe said 2 things. Because it's hard. So, meaning to keep Torah mitzvahs and pray and all that is a given. That's not a discussion. But then within that, which mitzvah is perhaps my specialty, my mission, my unique contribution that I can do? So the Rebbe said 2 interesting things. The Rebbe said, number 1, if you were gifted with a certain talent or skill, then you should utilize that skill and gift in making this world a better place. That means Hashem has given you something. If you're a good teacher, then go and volunteer as a teacher, or go and teaching. If you have ability to give money, then Hashem has gifted you with that. That's number 1. Number 2, and this is really a very unique approach. The Rebbe said, if there are mitzvahs that come easy to you, keep doing them, but that's not where your mission is. If there are mitzvahs that come difficult to you, that's where your mission is. Why? Because why is a certain mitzvah more difficult than the other? Because your evil inclination, which is a messenger of Hashem, knows exactly where your purpose is. So it fights in the areas. Doesn't want you to fulfill your mission. It fights the areas that it knows where it is. So when you struggle with a certain mitzvah, don't ignore it. Don't turn, okay, let me do something easy. That's where you should jump on. That is where your mission, perhaps where your mission is at. But in the same hand, in our service with Hashem, any mitzvah that comes too easy, take the mitzvah, challenge yourself. How can I make the mitzvah harder? There was a big philanthropist once asked the Rebbe, how did I know I gave enough tzedakah? I don't know, I gave enough tzedakah. The Rebbe told him, you have to give tzedakah until it hurts.
Yeah, there's an expression in German like that too.
Until it hurts. If it doesn't hurt, then that doesn't go only about money. I'm talking about that in general, in everything. And you know that in exercise, you know that in helping others, in davening. If your davening goes too easy, keep hurting it. Make it davening that it hurts a bit. It's healthy. Have a fantastic day. I'll talk to you guys and stay
Thank
safe.
you.
Hope we have no storm here, huh?
Nice to see everybody. Rabbi, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
That's
I'm
not-